Welcome to the third season of the Simple and Smart SEO Show, the podcast dedicated to empathy-driven, brand-building SEO. I'm your host, Crystal Waddell. I leverage my obsession with user experience to help business owners just like you optimize your website with confidence. Thank you so much for being here. Let's jump into another great episode. Hey there, welcome back to the Simple and Smart SEO Show podcast. I'm your host, Crystal Waddell. I'm doing things just a little bit different for the next couple of weeks, because I wanted to give you a peek inside of my SEO Squad membership and kind of what goes on in there. And we've been working on something really cool called Brand Stories. And the group really enjoyed our work session on this. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to turn this into a podcast episode. So people who may have wondered what exactly are we doing in there, you could get like a fly on the wall perspective. So I hope you enjoy. And if you like what you hear, don't forget to sign up for the 3-day challenge that starts in June. It's June 4th, 5th, and 6th. It's free, about SEO and how we're moving forward together in 2024. So mark your calendars and let's jump into it. I did this with Jasper the first time. And so now I'm going to do it with Chat GPT and just update my own messaging as we work through this together. One of the things that I wanted to do first was like grab 3 or 4 reviews from your review page. So we can grab some language from your customers. And we're trying to pick out brand words and like brand sentiment, if that makes sense. Okay. So why don't we take just a couple minutes to grab a couple of reviews that you can use to build that. Anybody have any questions? The last time I did this, it was, last year. So I definitely have new reviews that I can pull from. And I just made a copy of this so I can put it in here. You can make a copy as well, or just have a new Google Doc. Okay. So once you've got something similar to what I have on the screen, we're priming GPT to understand like what our brand's about. If you've never really used it before, this is really important. It's almost seasoning your pixel. It's got to warm up on your brand language. This is sufficient for me. And I'm going to go ahead and go to step 2, which is to talk about how we're going to create this brand story guide. And the prompt is, in a minute, I'm going to ask you to help me create a cohesive brand story that will become my brand messaging across my website and all social media platforms. What 10 to 20 questions do you need me to answer to write it to the best of your ability? So what we're doing is we're asking Chat GPT to essentially interview us about what they need to do this. I'm going to specify that I want a brand story about my photo props because I've already done senior night. So you could zero in on a specific product or collection if you want to, or you can zoom out big picture. It's your choice. So that's step 1. And now Chat GPT remembers what you're doing, which is cool. So that priming the Chat GPT pump. And then you want to put in the prompt of, I want to create a brand story about my business. What questions do you need me to answer to write that to the best of your ability? Once I have those questions, I'm going to answer them. So that's what we should all be doing right now, getting that list of questions and then starting to answer them. So my prompt was, what is the tone, tempo, and word choice of these reviews? And this is me copying and pasting in 5 reviews. So instead of doing one at a time, I just tossed them in there at once just to see if it could summarize it. And it did. So just to tell you a little bit about the tone of the reviews, like how I'm interpreting this is that the tempo is brisk and affirmative, which to me means that my ideal client wants things done quickly, and they're not really like me. They don't want to sit there and have a long conversation about things. They just want things to get done. And it's important to them that they have quality communication and fast shipping. One thing I learned from Jasper is sometimes I would accidentally hit enter before I was finished answering. So I'm going to copy those questions and put it in my Google Doc and answer it in the Google Doc, and then copy and paste that back into ChatGPT. And I fortunately have already done some of this. The origin story is going to be just a little bit more in depth from my side, probably than what you might have. Yep. And once we get them answered, then we'll copy and paste them back into ChatGPT. And that's why it's important to prime it with your business, because hopefully some of the questions are related to your business as a photographer. When you answer the questions, you can add that in there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I was saying that one of the questions that it asks me is that what makes your photo props unique or different from others in the market. And that's where I copied in that summary from the review sentiment, because I wanted to use like my customers' words, like, well, how do they view us, unique or positive or different? That's one place you can use that information too. So I've answered Chat GPT's questions. I'm going to go ahead and put my answers in here. So it's okay. I can work with this, right? Like you could probably work with yours once it spits out. And honestly, I think with this type of information, it creates a brand story that's like better than I could write for sure, and definitely faster. I copied the questions and then I just answered them right there. And then I just selected all of it and pasted it back in. And I actually forgot one thing that I'm going to put here, that after you finish with that, number 3 is actually personal story prompts. So now that I have my brand story, and once you have your brand story, you'll want to next ask Chat to help you craft your personal story. And some of it is overlap, but you'll see why it's necessary to have both. You could go back and tell Chat that you'd like it. Just say, can you revise with headers? And I can, as soon as it's done here, I can go back up for you. Okay. So you could just say, hey, could you break up the brand story with headers regarding our journey, our mission, our quality, our customers, our challenges, future plans, and an invitation, especially like on product or collection pages. When you're optimizing a page and it's what else can you say? Because you've already said just about all that can be said regarding that keyword. Every once in a while, something like this included as a section on your page serves as social proof and relevant text. And it might actually have more keywords or sentiment that will help your page rank. But how's everybody doing? He said that he's just booming right now. So SEO's killing it. So I'm not sure where you're at right now, but the next step I added in there was to do the personal brand story. And you can use some of the information that you've already got or some of the answers that you've already included for the main brand story. You might be able to use those over again. So I'm going to copy these 10 questions that Chat suggested for me to write my brand story. I'm going to do the same thing that I did earlier with the main brand story. I'm going to copy these questions over into a Google Doc, answer them, and bring them back over. And some of these questions are like deep, which is good. Okay, so I answered all the personal brand story questions, and now I'm putting them back into Chat. How's everybody doing? Yeah, if they're hard, sometimes just skip them. You know what I mean? Because you don't want to get stuck trying to come up with the perfect answer. Chat will bring it together for you, and then you can always go back and edit later. And I just realized I forgot to add in something about my ACL injury and just the mental health challenges that presented for me for a decade after I lost my identity as an athlete. So that's also something that's important to me. And I talk about it on social media. And this month is Mental Health Awareness Month. So just a friendly reminder to check in on your athletes and your people in your life. But so you can add in, if you forget something, and just say, hey, I forgot about this. Can you add that in? And now Chat's going to revise this. The final story that I'm going to put into this document is the client story. So once you're finished with that, then if you answer the client story prompts, that's going to give you a good picture of the people who buy from you. And again, Chat's going to fill in those blanks of like what this person needs. And so they're just amazing texts that you can use throughout your website, that you can use on social media. And this is the foundation of the brand story. And we'll talk next week about how we can actually use it to create a plan, like a marketing plan that you can implement as you're able. Go ahead, Anne.
Okay, same thing. I just missed the very first sentence that you said, or the client profile. What type in for that?
I'm getting ready to drop that prompt in there.
Oh, okay.
It's going to say, in a minute, I'm going to ask you to help me create a cohesive client story that will be stories and messages that my clients share about collage and wood. What 10 to 20 questions do you need me to answer to write that? And so it's going to generate another list of questions for you to fill out. And you just, whatever you know about your clients, you just want to try and answer that the best. And I'm putting it in the doc too, but I'm going to drop it now into the chat. Yeah. And it's amazing how if you put something like this on your website, on your About Me page, it's still about your customer. It's still about the experience, but it gives such a thoughtful insight into like how you became who you are and your company became what it is. I think people who read that type of stuff are really going to be blown away and, wow, this is definitely the person I want to work with. And then on the flip side, it helps you understand like how you want to portray yourself. You see these things that maybe you take for granted about your own journey, but then you're like, oh my gosh, this is something I could double down on in my messaging because that is what makes what I do special compared to someone else. They haven't had this particular experience, and that's what makes me so good at what I do.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. So I can see that you guys are probably going to be like in hyper focus for a while working on this, which is awesome. But I'll leave you with this today and just get through what you can. And then next week, we'll do a little bit more and we'll be putting together our guide and kind of talking about how we can use it and setting up some charts and some different things so where you can organize it to pull for social media, or you're like, what can I put on Google Business Profile? This is going to be some great stuff as well. And things that are just really going to build that cohesive messaging across all of the platforms. So this is the fun part, the marketing. Yeah. You realize how awesome you are. Any other questions before we head out? Yeah. And what I hear with those things is, okay, if I'm answering no to any of those things, then I'm like, hey, chat, give me a plan. What publications should I reach out to? What publications align with my mission? And what should I pitch? That's the great thing about tools like this is you can brainstorm with them and they will sometimes give you the shortest path to the end goal in a way that you never really thought about. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and sign us off here in a second. And you guys, continue doing your thing. Great job today, guys. I can't wait to see this. And remember, if you have any ahas like what Anne just came up with that maybe the rest of the group could use, just make a note of it so we can share maybe next week or the week after.